After this game, the entire series just kind of came crashing down. So, just like in Crash Bandicoot 2, this game picks up where the previous one left off in the secret ending, meaning the Cortex Vortex gets blown up and Dr. Cortex falls down back to Earth, but he just happens to fall down into a temple, and that is where Uka Uka is locked away. Uka Uka is an evil version of Aku Aku, which is the mark that indicates your HP in the previous games, and suddenly that's a plot element now. And just like in the previous game, the original version is much more dark and much more ominous and mysterious than the HD remaster. The thing though is, this game leans a little bit less on that dark and moody atmosphere than the previous game. This one is definitely more mechanically focused than atmosphere focused. The atmosphere is still very well put together, but it's not as big of the focus as it was in the last game. In the last game we had warp rooms warping us all around the planet and into sewers and to the North Pole, into, I don't know what this is, something with bees. But in this game, we go through time, meaning that we visit things like the Great Wall of China while it's being built, or ancient Egypt, even going so far as going to the future. Sometimes when getting into a level, you'll see Cortex or the boss of that world talking to you, warning you about how they're going to beat you and take your crystals. And yes, you're still looking for crystals and gems. This is Crash Bandicoot. Who is even surprised? And the first level, unlike in Crash Bandicoot 2, is actually immediately an actual level. You can die here. In Crash Bandicoot 2 there was a tutorial play area, which you had to complete before actually getting into the game. Here not so much, but this is actually a very well designed level. It shows you how to jump without putting you into danger, but then later on it shows you bottomless pits, which you don't yet have to jump over, but you can mix that jumping experience with seeing you can die from bottomless pits and figure, well, maybe I want to jump over them. I know this is very basic gameplay and everybody in the MOM probably should think of that when they see a bottomless pit, but this stage really prepares and trains you for that, and that's how the whole game is set up in general. It shows enemy behavior and simple ways to dodge enemies. It shows you the fact that there's bonus stages. It pretty much got everything a first stage needs for you to understand the game. Of course, this isn't actually the first level. Just like in Crash Bandicoot 2, you get access to 5 levels at once. Beating all of them gives you access to the boss fights and then you move on to the next world. But they are still numbered, and this is level 1. And the first world in general prepares you for the entirety of the game, because no two levels in this are quite alike. The second level is a water level, and that's something else right away, and I'm not a fan of these underwater levels whatsoever. Then the third level is a level where you play as Coco, something entirely new to this game, and you ride this tiger called Pura on the Great Wall of China, again, while it's being built. This is a fast-paced, high-skill ceiling kind of thing. You probably will be able to beat this, but going for the time trials, we'll get to that later, is brutally difficult on this. The fourth level in the first world is kind of similar to the normal platforming ones, granted, but it's still different because you're walking towards the camera, and that can only mean one thing. Yes, this is the chase kind of stage in this game, and this time it's dinosaurs, which objectively is the best out of the trilogy, just because dinosaurs. And the fifth level is a jet ski level, and fuck the jet ski levels. I mean, they're even worse in the HD remaster, but in the original they're still pretty bad. And then you can just cheese the boss like this. As you can see, no two levels in this first world are alike, and that is both something positive and something negative about this game. This game has a lot of different kind of gameplay styles, but I think it goes a little bit overboard and goes too far. If you enjoy a particular gameplay style, there's probably not going to be more than 2 or 3 levels dedicated to it, which is a shame. But also, because there are so many things, and I know I've said this about a lot of games, take Sonic Adventure for an example. If there's too many gameplay styles, you need a really good development team to make this work. Luckily, Naughty Dog is a really good development team, but still, just focusing on a few less gameplay elements would have benefited this game greatly. If not from a mechanical gameplay perspective, it's from a design perspective. The first level of the second world is a much more difficult version of the first level of the first world. It also has a bit of a different color to distinguish it a little bit more easily. But this really shows you it's very similar in look and feel and enemies, but it's much more difficult, showing you the difficulty curve of this game, which usually you don't really feel that well. It doesn't really spike anywhere, it just increases gradually. Having two stages that mirror each other like this, but the latter one being much more difficult, is a really good way to show you, look, we just know what we're doing. Please understand that we're not just making an easy game, we're just making a game that's difficult without you noticing it can be difficult. And a fun little fact, these wizards have 2 hits in the European version, but just 1 hit in the American version, because apparently in America in the 90s, underwear was way too sexual. This first level of the second world is also the first actual repeat we see of a gameplay style and a time period we visit. And then going to the second level, we get a new time period. Arabic stuff. I don't really know what the time period is. I know the location on Earth. I guess it's like medieval-ish as well. And the fun part about this is the different time periods don't just have different looks, they actually have different mechanics. Like, this Arabic one has bouncy platforms, new enemies, and hanging. Just like in Crash Bandicoot 2 in the sewers, you can hang from things in the Arabic places. This level also really cleverly teases you with the yellow gem, which you have to go into the secret warp room for later on at the end of the game to even be able to get. I mean, unless you're using glitches, but we're not really counting that now, do we? It's time for the next level. Get on your motorbike, and I don't like these levels. This first one is pretty okay, it's easy, it's nothing too horrible, but this gets really bad later on. Going into Egypt, we have falling platforms and slippery oil parts with falling things with... It's just awesome. These are my favorite theme of the game. I really like this. Just watch the footage on screen right now. I'm just not saying anything useful, so you can just extend the footage on screen right now and watch it a little bit longer than actually necessary. I love ancient Egypt in this game. Man, I do. Going into the third world, we get into another dinosaur level. You'd think, again, a repeat, but this is actually a dinosaur level with a new mechanic, because you can ride on a baby dinosaur. Again, I really like this game. And while I might not like underwater levels, there's one in this world which has the red gem, which is pretty difficult to get, but really satisfying when you do get it. And literally halfway through the game, third level, third world, you get into the first level, which has a death route for the purple gem. Death routes we all are familiar with. You don't die up until getting to that point, and you get into a separate route giving you some kind of secrets. Fuck. Road. Crash. And then we go back into the medieval times, and you think, okay, so we're repeating stuff a little bit too much now. But no, we're not, because there's a new enemy in here. There's a double-headed, like, club swinging dude, which is actually pretty interesting and sometimes difficult to avoid. And then Antrophy is just kind of a joke. He was built up very much because he's the one that built the time machine that Uka and Cortex are using here. His boss fight is underwhelming as fuck. You might think we're the fourth world, and honestly we've had so many different gameplay styles and vehicles, we'll probably be done with them and we'll get some more repeats from now on. You would think, well, there's one more. There's the plain levels, and let me tell you, I don't like these one bit. I do like the future themed levels, which is the very next level though, so I guess that kind of makes up for it, but again, this game is all over the place. Please, just focus on something that's fun, like Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider is fun. It's the best stage in the entire game in my opinion. I just damn love it. You've got racing water levels which then drop, and if you're not quick enough you drown and you die, and there is even a death platform in here which is actually pretty difficult to get to, which rewards you with the blue gem. Which is funny because blue and water, and the name of the stage is obviously a pun on Tomb Raider, but also on a wader, which is a thing fishermen wear because, you know, the water thing. It's just complete. I love this stage. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just my favorite stage in this game, and probably the entire Crash Bandicoot series. Maybe, possibly, I don't know if that's true. We've got Coco as a playable character on the Chinese wall, but we probably should also give her a boss fight in that case, right? So she's the one to fight Engine in space with the plane controls, and it's pretty difficult. And then when you beat the first stage? Yes, there's 2 stages, and the second stage is absolutely brutal. I know there's people who can easily do this, and maybe I'm just bad at it, but I don't like this boss fight. The idea for this boss fight is so good, but the execution is so bad. Beating it does give you access to the last world, so we're almost there. We've almost finished the game. We can almost rest easy, and then we get into the final motorbike level, Orange Asphalt. And it's actually hell on earth. And then you get into another plane level, because we've not had enough of that yet, have we? The very final level, though, is a very well-designed one. It's a dark level, and we haven't seen that at all yet in this game. And there's a section where 3 Aku masks are stacked on top of each other, meaning that you'll definitely get invincibility, and then you can run through a shit ton of nitros, which is satisfying. Really, really satisfying. And of course, since this is the final stage in the game, there's also the all-colored gem platform route, which isn't nearly as bad as it was in Crash Bandicoot 2, difficulty-wise. And the final boss is not as trivial as it was in the last game. I'm really happy about that, because in the last game it's actually saddening how trivial that final boss is. In this one it's still not the most difficult boss in the universe, but it actually requires some input from you, which is nice, I guess. I probably should mention that these boss fights in this game aren't the best in gaming history, and not even in the series. I think honestly Crash Bandicoot 2 did a better job at boss fights as well. But beating a boss fight rewards you with an extra power-up. For instance, and this is in order, you get an extra powerful belly flop from the first one, then a double jump, then a super spin, then a fruit bazooka, and as last, the running shoes. Those running shoes will help you with the time trials. That's something new in this game. After you beat a level and collect a crystal from it, you can go back in and suddenly there'll be this clock at the beginning of the stage. When you run through that, a timer starts and the entire stage kind of changes. A lot of boxes change and some of them get turned into time boxes. Breaking those time boxes will freeze the timer for 1, 2 or 3 seconds respectively, depending on the number of the box. Every single stage has 3 times. There's a sapphire time, there's a gold time, and there's a... wait, is that silver? As a kid I always figured that it was silver, and it never made any sense to me why silver was more difficult to get than gold, but of course, it's platinum. And then on the internet somewhere you can also find developers' time, which are even faster than platinum. And it doesn't really reward you with anything other than bragging rights, but hey, if you're really good at this game and you really like it, go for some developer time. So really difficult to beat. This game definitely all around is a little bit easier than Crash Bandicoot 2. The only reason I have got a bit of a harder time with this game is because Crash Bandicoot 2 I have completed a couple of times more than this. A lot actually. But you can just feel this game is easier to play. Maybe not easier to be really good at, because there's a lot more things going on, there's a lot more mechanics, there's a lot more moves you can do. But as a casual player, just completing the game, getting all the 25 crystals, this is much easier. Of course, when you want to get all the gems, things start to even out a little bit, and they're probably roughly as difficult as each other. I would still say Crash Bandicoot 2 is a little bit more difficult, but honestly, you probably shouldn't compare these 2 games, because they both excel in very different things. Crash Bandicoot 2 is, in my opinion, a little bit more difficult and less forgiving. It gives you a lot of lives, but this game gives you even more lives. Crash Bandicoot 2 is more atmospheric. This game is more mechanical. So, asking me which one I like more is really difficult, because I like both for different reasons. I would have to give the edge slightly to Crash Bandicoot 2. So in retrospect, play this game. It's as easy as that. Just play this game. The original version, in my opinion, is just a little bit better because of the jet ski thing in the HD remaster. You don't want to bother with that whatsoever. But the HD remaster for this one is definitely the closest of the original trilogy.